Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Councillor Stephen Holliday. I'm the chair of the Etobicoke York Community Council. We have quorum. I'm now calling meeting number 16 to order. Welcome, everyone. Today's meeting is being held by video conference and in person at the Etobicoke Civic Center in the council chamber. The meeting is also being live streamed online at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. Although we may be meeting in different locations today, Community Council would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. If you're registered to speak at today's meeting, please listen for me to call your name. I will call speakers in the order that they appear on the list. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Etobicoke York Community Council page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. Members, the City Clerk has provided all agenda materials on toronto.ca/council and on CMP, the Clerk's meeting portal. Clerk's IT staff are available to members if you need help with your devices. I also want to remind you to please submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at etcc@toronto.ca to help with motions. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you do have an interest, please indicate the item number and the nature of the interest. Seeing none, we will proceed. May I have a motion to confirm the minutes from our meeting on July 15th, 2024? Councillor Nunziata moves. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. And thank you. We'll go through the items. Our first item is 3400 Weston Road. That is EY 16.1, 3400 Weston Road and 2405 Finch Avenue West, official plan amendment and zoning amendment application decision report. I will hold that in my name for a speaker. The second item is EY 16.2, 175 to 185 Eileen Avenue, draft plan of subdivision application decision report. Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, I move the recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves the report recommendation. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 16.3 is 175 and 185 Eileen Avenue, non-residential demolition applications. Councillor Nunziata.
Move the recommendations.
Councillor Nunziata moves the recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. The next item is EY 16.4, 11 Hollis Street and 13 Hollis Street, residential demolition application. Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, I'll move recommendation 2.
Councillor Nunziata moves recommendation number 2, which is to approve the application to demolish the vacant residential building without any conditions. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries.
Does the staff have it? Yeah, okay, thank you. I just want to make sure the staff have that. Okay. On number 4, I moved recommendation 2.
That's approval without conditions.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. I just want to make sure the staff had it. Yeah.
Let me just back up. Number 3 is a demolition application. Did I skip that? Maybe I did.
No, you didn't. No, you went through it. I just moved the recommendation, staff recommendation.
Yeah, it's a singular. It's not, I don't think there was choices in that one. I think 3 is just the staff recommendations.
Pardon?
So there's a selection on 1, 2, or 3 under item number 3, which is
Oh.
the Eileen Avenue.
Okay, let me just hold it down then.
Okay, so we'll hold 16.3,
Thank you.
175 and 185 Eileen Avenue, non-residential demolition applications. Thank you, Madam Clerk. 16.4 is clear. Good. Okay, EY 16.5 is Lakeshore Boulevard West Avenue Study Status Report. Councillor Morley.
I'd like to hold for questions.
Councillor Morley is holding the item for questions of staff. EY 16.6 is 31 Flindon Road, application to remove a city tree. We do have a speaker listed. I'm going to call.
Mr. Chair, maybe
Yes?
I can help with this. Who's the speaker you have listed?
Mr. Dessau, and I think you're going to defer this item?
Correct.
Can I just call to see if Mr. Dessau is online? He is not. Over to you.
Yeah, the resident is trying to deal with this issue with forestry, so let's give him another cycle to do that. So I'm going to defer it to the next meeting of the Etobicoke Community Council. I think it's the 28th, so to the 28th of October.
28th of October.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Perruzza defers the item to the next meeting, 28th of October. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. EY 16.7, which is 23 Roseland Drive, application to remove a city tree. Councillor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious, do we have no speakers registered on this?
There are
Is that
no
correct?
speakers. I'll just call that out. Is there anyone here to speak for EY 16.7, which is 23 Roseland Drive, application to remove a city tree? No one online? No.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we'll be following the staff recommendations on this.
Okay.
Which is to allow the permit to remove one city-owned tree at 23 Roseland Drive. That's the staff recs are to deny. Sorry, deny the request. My apologies. I'm misreading my paper. I don't have my glasses on. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Yeah. Might not be my prescription.
Okay, so just for clarity, Deputy Mayor Morley is moving the staff recommendation, which is to refuse the request to remove one city-owned tree at 23 Roseland Drive. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. EY 16.8 is 23 Bradbury Crescent, request for fence exemption of the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447. I'll hold that in my name as there are speakers registered. EY 16.9, which is my letter to reopen item EY 14.17, 94 Cowley Avenue, request for a fence exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447. Members, it's a reopening and it's a technical change for the cardinal compass points. Otherwise, it's the same as previous. We considered it last meeting. Any questions on that? Okay, so I will move my recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 16.10, which is to reopen item EY 15.10, 56 Coney Road, request for a fence exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447. Councillor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the request of staff, we're reopening this item just to correct language within the previous decision. So I believe clerks have the language from staff. Yep, just moving adoption of that updated language. Thank you.
All those in favor of the recommendation? Any opposed? That carries. EY 16.11, 5207 Dundas Street West, construction staging area. Councillor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are looking to provide some direction for better staging in this area. I believe staff have the recommendations with them on this Housing Now site at Dundas and Kipling, and looking to help with construction staging, sidewalk closures, and increase pedestrian access and safety in this area. So we're looking to add a stop sign for eastbound traffic and requesting to add zebra markings at the stop sign.
Do we have a modification, or do you want to hold it down?
You don't have the language. Adoption of the construction staging.
Okay, so Deputy Mayor Morley moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor, any opposed, that item carries. EY 1612, which is Albani Street traffic calming, we have speakers. So we'll hold that in my name. EY 1613, Eileen Avenue traffic calming, Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, I would like this item deferred to the next community council meeting in October.
Councillor Nunziata defers the item to the next meeting. We're okay? All right, all those in favor of the deferral? Any opposed? That carries. EY 1614, Strathdee Drive, traffic calming, speed humps. I will move the the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 1615, Dennis Avenue, school bus loading zone, Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, move the staff recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. EY 1616, accessible parking spaces, September 2024, delegated. Councillor Nunziata.
Move staff recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. EY 16.17, Venetian Crescent, parking amendments. Councillor Perruzza.
I'd like to move the staff recommendations there.
Councillor Perruzza moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. EY 16.18, Goodmark Place, parking amendments. Councillor Crescent.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I will move staff recommendations.
Councillor Crescent moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 1619, changes to the Mount Dennis Business Improvement Area Board of Management. Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, I move the recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves the recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. EY 1620, 59 Valhalla Inn Road, designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880 fire routes. I'll move the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. EY 16.21, this requires a motion to add as new business. So motion to add the item. All those in favor? Any opposed? And we will leave that and come back to it at the end of the list. Okay, back up to the top of the list. Our first item is EY 16.1.
Mr. Chair, are you adding anything to the agenda at this time?
We can, or we can
yeah.
add it in a few minutes if you've submitted it to the clerk.
Sure. I thought you might have it on your desk already, but
Not yet.
if my assistant, okay, sure, I'll do that.
Okay, so we'll get to that in a few minutes as soon as it's ready. Back up to EY 16.1, 3400 Weston Road and 2405 Finch Avenue West, official plan amendment and zoning amendment application decision report. Our first speaker is Remy Davut. Remy is online. Good morning, Remy. It's Stephen Holliday, Chair.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council.
Hi, good morning.
We can hear you well. Please begin as soon as you're ready. You have 5 minutes.
Yeah, I actually live in the area. I live at 3390 Weston Road, so it's the building right beside. And I saw that you guys were thinking about building another building in between the 3400 and the 2405, and I just thought that it's going to be way too congested, and I don't think that's really possible and doesn't really make sense because there's already 6 buildings there. And now you want to add about 400 units, 400 parking spots. So you're going to just crowd about 1,000 people, 1,000 cars. I was just wondering, how's that going to work? And how is there going to be a roadway to enter the building? Where is that going to come from? Is it going to go on Weston or is it going to go on Finch? Yeah, that's it. I was just wondering if
Thank you. Thank you, Remy. Are there any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us today. Our next speaker is Ian Andres. Good morning. Welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council. You've got 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Holliday, members of Community Council. My name is Ian Andres. I'm with Goodmans, and I'm here on behalf of Medallion Realty Holdings Limited. I'm here this morning to speak in support of Medallion's application for official plan and zoning bylaw amendments and generally in support of the staff recommendations. We do have two minor but important concerns to raise in respect to the form of planning instruments that the staff have put forward today, which I'll get to in a moment. But as an overall comment, I wanted to start by thanking staff for seeing the merit in this application for a significant amount of new purpose-built rental housing in an area where it is needed, just steps from the new Finch West LRT line and Emery station. This is a site that already has two 26-story rental apartment buildings on it, but does have room to accommodate a third infill development building in the form of a 5-story podium and 30-story tower. And the infill development building would be adjacent to Lindy Lou Park on the west edge of the property. And we've worked carefully with staff, and there's certainly room to accommodate the proposal on the site. All transportation issues, natural heritage issues, and all other planning-related matters have been carefully considered. The proposal is well designed. It'll fit seamlessly into an area that has seen several new towers built in recent years, many of which were built by Medallion. And it will result in over 400 new rental dwelling units being provided in this site in a new building with modern amenities. As noted in the staff recommendations, Medallion is also committed to several improvements to the existing two rental buildings on the site, so that's a bonus for those tenants as well. And Medallion has also agreed to relocate the existing privately operated daycare facility into the podium of the new development. Now, having said that, this is one of the areas that gives rise to one of the concerns I wanted to raise today. And I want to be clear, Medallion fully intends to relocate the daycare facility. This has always been part of its proposal. It's not something that Medallion's wavering from. However, it is not something that the city can or should be requiring as a mandatory requirement in the planning instruments that are before you today. And I acknowledge that this is something that historically has been commonplace through Section 37 agreements where through a practice commonly known as bonusing, the city would require certain community services or facilities to be provided in exchange for additional height or density of a proposal. But as I'm sure you know, that old Section 37 regime has been replaced by this community benefit charge regime, which does not allow for that type of mandatory contribution any longer. What the CBC regime does allow for is in-kind contributions, where facilities can count towards the CBC credit. There'd be an offset valued by way of appraisal. It's my understanding in this case the city is not looking to do that, not looking to accept this daycare facility as a municipally run facility and one for which Medallion would obtain credit. But in the absence of that kind of arrangement, the city is simply not permitted to impose a requirement for Medallion to construct or operate a new facility. This is contrary to both the Development Charges Act and the Planning Act. And most importantly, it creates a compliance problem potentially if the daycare operator ever ceased its operations for whatever reason. And again, that's not the intention, but over the course of years, something could happen. All of a sudden the daycare could close for some reason, and all of a sudden Medallion would find itself offside its official plan policy and offside its zoning bylaw. So I submitted a letter last week, which I know is attached to the item. Hopefully you had a chance to look at it. I understand my client did have a discussion with Councillor Perruzza as well. And while Medallion is certainly comfortable with the zoning bylaw permitting the day nursery and also requiring adjacent outdoor space in connection with the day nursery, assuming that the nursery is provided, it should not, and I'm speaking about the bylaw here, it should not require a certain amount of GFA to be used only for a day nursery. Because again, if the day nursery ceases operating, there'll be a compliance issue in the zoning bylaw. Similarly, the site-specific official plan policy should not require a social facility with a minimum GFA in order for the property to be in conformity with the official plan. This is even more problematic if something were to happen, because then Medallion would be in the awkward position of having to bring forward an official plan amendment application to change the policy just because there's something happened with the daycare. And, like with the official plan, if that were to happen, Medallion should also not be put in the position where it would have to bring forward a minor variance application or a zoning bylaw amendment application. So we have requested that some of the provisions in the zoning bylaw amendment that's before you and one policy in the site-specific OPA that's before you be deleted before these bills come back to council for enactment, assuming, of course, you see merit in the rest of the proposal, which we hope you do. And I'm happy to speak in more detail about that. It's outlined in my letter exactly which items we're asking to be removed before the bills come forward. So that covers it for the daycare. And then just finally, we're also requesting that the unit cap be deleted from the zoning bylaw amendment. And this is because there's over 400 units being provided, but the zoning bylaw seeks to put a maximum of 403 rental units. And if it so happens that market conditions require additional demising, reconfiguration of units, and Medallion all of a sudden proposes 404, for example, instead of 403. It shouldn't be in a position where it needs to come back for zoning relief for that. That's just an extra obstacle for a rental housing development, which we don't believe is warranted in this case. So subject to any questions you have, those are our comments this morning. Again, we commend staff for its review of this application, and we hope you see fit to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Are there any questions of the speaker? Deputy Mayor Morley, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for your submission. Just curious on this one. Obviously, it's not in my ward. The deputy mentioned 400 parking spaces. Is the intention on this application to provide one for one parking space to new unit, or somewhere in that range?
The parking rates set out in the bylaw are what are proposed here. So it's a minimum of 0.85 residential occupant parking spaces for each unit, but also 0.15 residential visitor spaces for each unit. So it adds to one.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. And then the other piece I just wanted for clarification is I think you mentioned towards the end of your submission that this is a purpose-built rental building. Is
Yes,
that correct?
that is.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Are there any other questions of the speaker? Seeing none,
Thank you very
for
much.
joining us today. Questions of staff on the item? Councillor Peruzzi?
Yeah, I'd just like staff to address that, the two concerns that were raised and why the proposal before us today is the way it is. So on the daycare, why the daycare would be embedded in the OP, in the official plan amendment in the OPA here, and as well as if you could just speak a little bit as well to the sort of to the cap that defines that sort of sets the limits to the GFA here, and why that wiggle room is as tight as it is. If someone could do that, that would be good.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I might need some assistance in answering these questions, but I'll start off. On the item of the cap, when we do bylaws across the city, it's true sometimes we do not include a cap, and sometimes we do. Generally, and there shouldn't be inconsistency across the city, but generally in the Etobicoke York District, we have historically leaned towards adding a cap because it reflects what we reviewed during the process. If the applicant was going to propose more units, then why haven't we reviewed more units during the process? So generally, we tie the bylaw to what's in front of us. We double down a little bit on that, if that's the right expression, when the unit sizes are really small relative to the growing up guidelines, because we're already venturing into a building that has smaller than normal unit sizes, and to have no cap on the overall number could only translate down the road into even smaller units. So our view is we work cooperatively and collaboratively with the applicant, and if this is the proposal before us, generally we try to reflect that in the bylaw. I'll admit, as I said at the start, we don't always put a cap, and certainly it's not consistent across all districts. In this case, we have such. In terms of the daycare use, what's before this committee is an application for a lot more density and a lot more height where none existed. And while we're not in a Section 37 regime, the applicant, throughout this proposal, has proposed a daycare or day nursery type use. And so all we are doing in this bylaw is reflecting, again, the use and proposal that's before us and that's gone through the process. In the OPA, we actually don't define it as a day nursery. I think the terminology we use is a social facility, X amount of square meters of a social facility. And in the bylaw, that is draft zoning bylaw, we do include it more specifically defined as a day nursery. In terms of the applicant's representative speaking to in kind, we did look into this, and we are advised that A, The rough CBC number that would probably come out of a development like this is between, say, $1.5, $2 million. However, such a daycare use is likely to be in excess of that amount by a significant amount. So, A, it wouldn't be an equivalent in-kind benefit, and two, it is smaller than we would normally require for it to meet city standards as a day nursery. So it's why it is a private nursery within this building. All our bylaws doing is just reflecting what was before us as part of the reason for supporting the overall development. I acknowledge the comments made by the applicant's representative. All I can say is we've just reflected what was before us. I don't know if staff
I guess the question is this, and I don't know the answer to it, and this is why I'm asking it. Why is it attached to the official plan amendment approval and not at the lower level of zoning, so that if, for example, as the applicant's lawyer suggested, that should some change be required down the road in order to bring the site on side, it would just be a variance application that would be required as opposed to a complete official plan amendment to bring it on side. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just trying to understand it.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and Laura Lee Tulloch may be able to confirm this. My understanding is that the governing secondary plan, the Emery Village secondary plan, had some words in it that required such social facility use, and so the OPA was, in a sense, reflecting that. If you were to strike this clause from the OPA, portion 13.4.1a, and it remained in the zoning bylaw, yes, then it would require you could go through a minor variance down the road. It's an option. We put it in the OPA generally because it's reflecting the secondary plan. It's not the end of the world if it wasn't in the OPA, but it just reflects what was in the secondary plan.
And so,
Come on, Councillor. Any other? I just want to make sure everyone gets a chance. Any other questions? Consent to second round? Okay. All right. You're okay to let him finish? Perfect. Thank you.
so I see. Okay, so because the sort of the social benefit is detailed in the secondary plan, I guess I'm trying to understand it. So if you came in with a proposal here that didn't reflect that, we would be altering in essence the secondary plan, and that element of the secondary plan. Is that what you're trying to say?
If it wasn't in the OPA that you have before this committee, the requirement's still embedded in the draft zoning bylaw amendment, so the day nursery would still be required.
Okay. Right.
So it's just that we were reflecting in a general sense what was wanted to the secondary plan exercise.
Okay, and I guess my last question on this, the secondary plan, what's the in terms of the generally the FSI permitted across the lands, what does the secondary plan say? Because I don't see that here readily in the report. Do you have that number available or not?
Through the chair, this is a question maybe staff might be better
For sure.
capable of answering, so I'll ask Laura Lee if she could come up.
Good morning, Chair. Yeah, so the secondary plan. Oh, sorry. How's that? Okay, great. So the Emery Village secondary plan encourages the development of community services and facilities through height and density incentives. So the permitted height and density for the subject lands, if a community benefit such as the daycare facility is provided, is 18 stories and an FSI of 3. So the applicant's proposal's FSI is 2.73, and they would require an amendment to exceed the 18 stories.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. And just to Councillor Morley's point around the parking, the 0.85. Generally speaking, is that like a number that you negotiated, or is that something that the applicant just offered up as they're not required to offer any parking in a sense, right?
So the applicant did propose 0.85 spaces per residential unit, and this was justified as well based on the LRT system that's going in. I believe that typically it would be around 0.87 parking spaces per unit, but given the LRT and the ridership there, we were accepting of the 0.85.
Okay, and so they have some other buildings there as well on that side of Weston Road. Do you know what the parking ratio is in their current existing buildings? No,
I do not have.
I
that
should have asked the
information.
applicant this question, but yeah, because generally the experience there is not so bad in terms of the parking issues that we're having. On the other side of the street where they have some other development, we're having some real parking issues. And I see someone's coming with a laptop. Sure. Do you know the number there?
Good morning, through the chair. Yes, so the 0.85 spaces per unit, Councillor, was based on, in part, on existing parking utilization surveys of the buildings that are on the site right now.
Right. Yeah, but you don't know what those numbers are.
In terms of
what the parking ratios are per unit count there in
It's
the existing buildings.
0.85 spaces per unit.
No, in the new development, it'll be 0.85.
No. What I'm trying to get to is...
Oh,
is-
so now it equalizes across the
That's
entire
correct,
site
yes.
to a 0.85 because
Correct.
you're adding all of the numbers together?
Correct. So they did the applicant completed some parking utilization surveys of the existing buildings, and based on those surveys is how we derive the 0.85 spaces per unit.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Councillor Nunziata first.
Yeah.
Please go ahead, and then Councillor Crescent.
Just about the daycare, when we heard the deputation from the applicant, they mentioned city-run daycare. So, Children's Services, have they been notified on running a city-run daycare in this facility, or do we not communicate with them if that's the intent?
I'm going a bit from, through you, Mr. Chair, I'm going from memory, but my recall is this is not a city-run daycare. This
No,
is
but
private.
the applicant mentioned it during his deputy. Oh, so there's no
not-
city-run? Oh, okay. I thought I heard the applicant mention city-run. So, as far as the bicycle parking spaces, can you explain? I don't understand this part. 312 bicycle parking spaces, including 274 long-term and 28 short-term. Well, what does that all mean? Long-term, short-term? I've never seen that before.
Perhaps Luigi could answer that, Mr. Chair.
Through the chair, I didn't bring my laptop this time. Long-term bicycle parking spaces are generally spaces that are typically used by residents. Short-term visitor parking spaces bicycle parking spaces are typically spaces that are used by visitors to the site, whether they're going to visit a family or a relative or a friend in the building, or they may be using some of the non-residential uses that are there.
Okay. Now, a number of these applications, we are asking for bicycle parking. Now, what happens if once it's built and it's not used? What happens with the space?
Through the chair, Councillor, I'm not sure.
Storage? Is it storage or?
It could be used as storage, I guess, yes.
Yeah.
It could be used as storage to some extent, although you have the bike racks that would come into play there and limit the storage availability to some extent. For our purposes, we just try and ensure that they're providing the required bicycle parking space that they need to comply with zoning requirements. Once that's done and once that's built, then your guess is as good as mine as what they could use those spaces for if they're not
Yeah.
used for bicycle parking.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Crescent.
Thank you. This is Mr. DeColucci, or?
Oh,
Need you?
Do I need my laptop?
No, I don't think so. So there are always inherent issues with parking in high-rise buildings, and I think I heard you say that based on surveys that you did on the current buildings that are there, you determined that the 0.85 will work across the board, even with the new ones?
Through the chair, that is correct. That was part of the rationale for the 0.85 spaces per unit. That and the future LRT that was mentioned earlier.
Okay, so the surveys did not detect any parking issues that are currently there now that people are having with any parking. They need extra parking, they have enough parking.
What the surveys did is they just did a demand calculation of the existing utilization of the parking spaces on the site right now.
All right.
So it turned out that, if I remember correctly, I don't have my laptop with me, the actual utilization was 0.83 spaces per unit, so slightly less than the 0.85.
So there's adequate parking.
There's adequate parking right now, yes.
Now, I don't see, and I've been looking for it, what about visitor parking?
Visitor parking, if I remember correctly, it's 0.15. I have to get my laptop if you don't mind for a second.
It's
Sure.
That's what we secured, if I remember.
Yeah.
It is.
I didn't.
I was just informed. That is
Oh, you
correct,
know what?
yes.
I apologize. I just found it. Yeah. Okay, 0.15 residential visitor parking.
Correct.
Did your survey include that as well in the survey you did to ensure that the current visitor parking in the other buildings are adequate?
Through the chair, normally when parking utilization surveys are done, they try and take into account all demand that's generated by the existing buildings, whether they're visitor parking or whether there's residence parking.
All right, so you're satisfied that formula will work?
We are happy with the parking rates that have been secured, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions of staff? Deputy Mayor Morley.
Thank you. I think this one will be for our planners. I just wanted to confirm, was mentioned that the 18 stories was considered anything up to or exceeding, I imagine, 18 stories would trigger the need for some kind of a social facility. I understand this one's coming in at 26 stories. So notwithstanding whether it's a private daycare, like what the space is, I just wanted to confirm that through the recommendations before us today that there will be some kind of community facility secured at 26 stories within this building. Is that a fair assessment?
Hi, through you, Chair. So the new building that's being proposed is 30 stories. The Emery Village Secondary Plan permits up to 18 if they provide a social facility. So the need for the amendment in this case is to increase that 18-story limit to 30, with the social facility being provided.
Okay, just wanted to confirm. Thank you so much. That's my question.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, members wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'll move the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. Correct. Nobody wanted to speak. Okay, members, there are two items with members of the public that wish to speak. Just to be efficient, I'm going to propose we move those up. That gives the clerk a few moments just to make adjustments to those two items that we set down, and then we have some new items of business to deal with. So the first item is EY 16.8 in the new order. 23 Bradbury Crescent, request for offense exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447. We have two speakers. I'm just going to let the speakers know my intention is to defer this item one cycle. However, since you're here, you're most welcome to speak. Our first speaker is Nicolaus Nendos. Yes. Mr. Nendos. And I see Constantina also listed. Did you want to speak together or separately?
We are together.
Together, okay. And do we have a microphone available if, okay. We'll just have to bend the microphone to do our best if you wish to speak.
The way I see my English, it's not good.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Sounds pretty good from here. Okay, welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council. You have 5 minutes each to speak to us.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
My name is Dundas, and I live at 23 Bradbury Crescent, the corner. And I live there since '89. I never had any problem. Since the next door, 21 moves about 9 years ago, and soon they move. They install cameras and a very strong lights focus into our property. And it is very strong. And I don't mind, if he has his own property for protection, but focus in our property, it is, I don't understand, because 3 times my wife, the light is too bright, and she blind, and she fell. And also the south side of my neighbor, 18 Heartland, we've been okay, and since they install the other neighbors' cameras and lights, she installed also cameras and lights, and the light, to her backyard, focusing to our bedroom, and it's off and on, and they're very strong, and also to our kitchen. So that's why in our bathroom and the rear door. So that's why we apply, if it's possible, for exception extended fence to protect our property. Because I don't think it's right, like to see all these lights soon we go up to our backyard. So I don't have to say too much. That's the problem, and that's the reason we apply for exception extended fences.
Thank you, Mr. Nendos. Yeah, I just wondered if we could adjust the feed on the screen to fix that.
Can I show some pictures?
Oh, did you have some pictures? Yep.
Yes,
go
we
ahead.
have pictures and videos.
The light and the...
Yep, you can go ahead and show the pictures. Change your passcode after the meeting.
Here it's one camera there. How to... Maybe I have a pencil. Here one camera, and we install this one to protect our property, and a second camera the other side, and here it's 2 cameras to the wall of the house, one here, one here. Δείξω και το light, okay. Altogether of the 21 Bradbury, we have 5 cameras. From the 18 Heartland, we have 2 cameras focused to my house. But I'm gonna show you the light now. I think right. Oh, Jesus, I can't find it now. This is from the Heartland, the light focus in our bedroom, and but something wrong now, I can't find it. I'm sorry. I have it before and I can see now.
Mrs. Nendos, if it's easier for you, you're welcome to send them to me by email.
don't know
I need
how
a little
to
bit of
use
time
email.
to prepare these. I don't want. I know it's awkward on the spot. Is there anything else you wanted to tell us about
That's
the situation?
from the Heartland side, the whole August every night till the light on, to 1 o'clock midnight, it's flashing, the light flashing like this.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I
It's
have
okay.
it before, but I can find it now.
So, thank you. I'm going to ask if there's questions. I'm going to have a few questions for the speaker. Are there any questions from my colleagues for the speakers? Deputy Mayor Morley, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, thank you for joining us today and to share
Questions?
about your experience. My question is, have you reported in the light intrusion? Have you tried to report to the city about the intrusion of the lights from your neighbors?
Yeah,
You have reported?
We
They didn't do anything.
No follow-up. Okay.
And also, they sent us a letter, they threaten us.
The neighbor?
Yeah,
Yes.
the neighbors, they're gonna take us to Superior Court and they charge, they asking for $500,000.
Oh,
I
goodness.
don't know why.
Γιατί
They are
τους
in trouble.
κάνουμε.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to follow up with staff as well about the light
We
intrusion
have the
question.
letter with us if you want to see.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So, Mr. and Mrs. Nendos, I'm Stephen Holliday. I'm your counselor. One of the difficult things with these type of cases is that we get a paper sent to us before the meeting. We have a very short description, and I know from experience there's complicated things like cameras and lights. I'm going to give the clerk my card, and I'm going to ask her to give it to you, and I'm going to ask that you give me a call. But I'm going to ask you a couple of questions because that's what I have to do. I can't talk to you on the floor. So my first question is, I passed by the home and I looked. If you were to receive an exemption in the fence, would you consider straightening some of the boards and correcting some of the wood? Because I noticed from the side it was a little bit crooked. Could you make some adjustments?
Well, I don't know, if somebody come and show us how to do, maybe we will
Okay.
try to do it. Because as you understand, our English is not perfect and I don't understand.
It's okay.
Όπως που ήρθε, τράβηξε και φωτογραφία.
We can work that out. The second question I have is you understand that you can build taller, but the amount that you're too tall is this much, 10 centimeters. You understand that? The bylaw officer told you that?
Higher.
You built up, but you went this far too much. So you can build up to 2 meters,
Yeah.
but this is the amount that's too tall, this much.
And still we have the light and
I
the
understand.
cameras also, even if it's, the person who comes from the city to check,
Yes?
they tell us it's 5 inches, 4 inches, it's higher
this
from
much.
the normal, yes.
And I also want to make sure I understand correctly. You built up your fence on one side.
Yes.
The other side, you didn't build it up yet.
We didn't, because
You
we
wanted to-
wait for your
You want permission?
opinion.
Okay. My last question is, do you understand I'm gonna come back to this next month because I want a chance to talk to your neighbors. Because I
Okay.
need to understand the situation.
Okay.
You understand that? You can come back. But can you give me a call and we can discuss on the phone? Because I'm not going to fix all of this in one spot today.
So when you want us to call you?
Anytime after today. And we'll make an appointment to have a conversation, maybe come look. Okay? And we'll come back October 28th, Madam Clerk, is the next meeting. And we'll make the decision 1 month from now, okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you for speaking to us today. I'll ask, are there any other questions of the speakers? Seeing questions of staff. Thank you for joining us.
So the reason we didn't extend on the south side is because the cameras and the light is on the roof
I
of the
understand.
house.
I saw it.
So that has to be raised about 2-3 meters, which is,
I saw it. So we'll talk, okay?
yeah,
Thank
okay.
you. Questions of staff? Thank you for joining us today.
So, okay, one question. I have a notice which I received from the city to put on a window about today's meeting. Can I remove that or I have to leave there?
We'll find out for you, okay? I don't know, but I'll get an answer for you in a moment.
Yeah, because
Okay.
it says people have to read, you know, it's about a piece of paper
Yes.
I put
Yes,
on a window. I don't know if it still has to be there or,
I understand. Well, I'll get that answer for you in a moment. Thank you for joining
Okay.
us, okay?
okay, thank you.
Questions of staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a
Deputy
quick
Mayor
one on the light intrusion issue from the neighbors. If you could just provide a brief explanation from the city's policy related to light intrusion and what options the residents generally can lean into for support around that issue.
Sure. Generally, how it stands through you, Chair, with light intrusion is that if the light is directly pointing to the property, there is potentially a bylaw violation. Where it's ambient lighting, maybe shining off of a side, reflecting off of something, there's no bylaw violation. The speaker did indicate that he did make a complaint with respect to that to our office. I haven't looked into that, but I can definitely follow up and provide him with an update as to where we are with that.
Thank you. It's my only question. I just wanted to make sure it was clear that outside of a 2 or 3 more meter height fence, that there is
generally
another
we'd
option.
ask for if there was a violation like a buffering, a shield of some sort turning it a different direction. So there are ways to mitigate it.
Wonderful. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Councilor Nunziata?
Well, actually, that was my question about the lighting. But as far as the security cameras, are there bylaws and restrictions where they could be installed? Like if it's
yeah.
on privacy or?
Yeah, so unfortunately right now, through each other, there's no bylaw regulation for security cameras, where it becomes more of an intrusion of privacy of some sort, or if there's feelings of harassment of some nature, it would be a police matter.
A police matter?
Yeah, like if they were feeling they were directly pointing into their property,
Well,
you know.
I doubt if the police have all this time to go look
No,
at security
exactly.
cameras.
So I think because it's
They're
fairly-
busy as it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, to speak? I'll speak briefly. I'm just going to ask that this item be deferred to next day. That'll give me an opportunity, if the neighbors are watching the proceedings, to know that it would be beneficial to understand all of the context. And I appreciate the residents have come out today. It's the first I've heard of the details, and I'm glad that I heard some or one side of the story. So I look forward to the meeting next day. We will reconsider this, and I know that the residents have my card and that they will give me a call. And so on the deferral to next day, all those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. Okay, I propose moving EY 1612 Albani Street traffic calming. There are 2 speakers, that is Lindsay and Blake Richardson. Now, I did see Lindsay and Blake here, but I did see them step out. So I'll call one more time to see if Lindsay and Blake are here. I don't see them. Okay, so on 1612, anyone else to speak? None? Okay, questions of staff? Councillor Morley. Councillor Morley to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry we lost our couple of residents who wanted to weigh in on this, but I did want to thank my staff team as well as the local residents who had reached out to us with this particular request. This is something that's been ongoing from my predecessor, who was in receipt of requests for traffic calming, and it's taken us some time to move through the process. But there is a recommendation before us today to authorize the installation of speed humps on Albany Street between Dwight Avenue and Royal York. This is a very busy small street that is adjacent to a local junior middle school, 2nd Street, which has expanded and over doubled the size of population at that school. So we're looking to direct our solicitor to prepare the bylaws altering the roadway for the installation of 6 speed humps on Albany Street between Dwight and Royal York. In the drawings and detailed information are attached to the agenda here. We are looking for support from our colleagues today. Again, as I say, we we have done significant follow-up work, including letter drops to the neighborhood, and we've had support from all but one resident on the street. So we look forward to moving the staff recommendations on this item.
All those in favor of the staff recommendations? Any opposed? That item carries. Madam Clerk, I'm just going to check with you because the system indicates otherwise. We still need to reconsider item number 3. So we're going to go back to number 3 for reconsideration. All those in favor? Any opposed? The item is now open. Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, so on item number 3, and I apologize to the clerk on this, I'll move recommendation 2.
Councillor Nunziata moves recommendation 2. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Madam Clerk, I'm just going to check for item number 4. Do we have that process? That's okay. That came through. I think that was 4 was fine. Okay. Yep. So we will go back to, I know we have an item for introduction. We'll get to that in a minute. So we'll go to EY 16.5, which is Lakeshore Boulevard West Avenue Study, held by Deputy Mayor Morley. Questions of staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a couple of quick questions of staff, and I wanted to say a big thank you to the team involved with bringing this interim report forward and a status report on the Lakeshore Avenue study, which is ongoing. There are a couple quick questions related to built form and public realm that I'd like to direct to staff. The first question is pertaining to some of the as-of-right permissions of 8 to 11 stories in line with our city-wide avenue initiatives. What is the rough breakdown of people supportive or not supportive of those changes in this study to date? We know that would have quite a material impact on Lakeshore. I'm just wondering what you all have been hearing about that particular aspect of this work.
Thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor Morley, and through the chair. I'm Desiree Liu, one of the co-leads on the Lakeshore Boulevard West Avenue study. And we did have an online survey that asked that exact question: what if residents are in support or not in support of the proposed heights between 8 to 11 stories. So based on 133 respondents that answered that specific question, 53% were in support of the proposed heights, and 40% did not agree with the proposed heights. And out of the people we spoke to in person at the public engagement events, through our planners and public spaces event, we felt that most people we talked to in person were in support of the proposed heights. They thought that mid-rises were appropriate for the avenue, which is a direction that is consistent with what city planning is trying to achieve citywide through the Housing Action Plan.
Great, that's super helpful. Thank you so much, Desiree, and we look forward to keeping a track on that as the final report comes forward. The next one is pertaining to current lot dimensions. I know there is the technical review and analysis underway to ensure that lots are sufficient to facilitate these heights and that are proportionate to the width of the right-of-way. So I just wanted to dig into that a little bit around whether or not you have a sense of what minimum lot depth would be necessary to have comfortable for you to be comfortable recommending the as-of-right permission changes. Let me know if you're following me here, Daniel.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, I'm
good.
following the question through the chair, and yes, thank you for the question. So this is something that we are taking a detailed look at through our study, studying the lot fabric of the entire avenue, looking at what an appropriate lot depth would be to facilitate an as-of-right 8 to 11 story mid-rise development, as well as trying to leave space for a potential rear laneway network as well to help bring vehicle traffic away from the avenue to minimize curb cuts and direct loading to the rear of properties as well. But generally what we're seeing, and this is also consistent with the citywide avenues policy review for mid-rise buildings on avenues, is 34 meters in lot depth. That could be a slightly moving target, slightly below or slightly above, but generally a lot depth of 34 meters should be appropriate to achieve an as-of-right 8 to 11 story mid-rise building and still have enough space for a rear laneway and sufficient rear separation from the rear of the mid-rise building to the neighborhood's designation to the rear of the building as well.
That's very helpful. I know we're well served generally by laneways along Lakeshore Avenue, but I do know that there are some sections of the street that might not have that same kind of context to support this. I'm curious if you all have started to zone it or sort of, focus in on some of the areas that would not make sense for this kind of as of right permission. If you could share any more details about that.
Yes, through the chair, thank you for the question. We do recognize that there are some lot depths along this avenue that don't achieve that 34 meters in total lot depth. So we are noting those areas as needing more study work to determine what the appropriate as of right building height would be. Right now, there is a site and area specific policy across the entire avenue that does generally limit mid-rise or buildings to no more than 4 stories, and in some cases 6 stories. We are looking at an upzoning of lots across the avenue, and if a lot depth doesn't achieve 34 meters, perhaps there's still an ability to go above 4 stories, but we still need to do a little bit more work to determine what an appropriate height would be, but we do recognize that there are some lots that are not achieving that 34 meters, and a lower height may be recommended.
Great. I'm out of time. I'm just going to sneak in one more question, and I'll follow up with you guys offline on some of the other ones that came up for us in review of the study. A status report. The last one is just in terms of next steps and what members of the public can expect from the team in terms of engagement and when we expect the final report to come forward.
Through the chair, so the next step for the study is we're in the middle of developing the draft recommendations, and once we have a draft ready, we'll present that to the local advisory committee before going back out to the public to conduct another open house format community engagement session. And we hope to take that feedback, refine the recommendations, and come back in Q2 of 2025 to Etobicoke Community Council.
Amazing. Thank you. We look forward to continue to support this great work. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other questions? Seeing none, you move the staff recommendations. Deputy Mayor Morley moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. Members, we have another item to introduce. This is being circulated by Councillor Perruzza. Did you have any comments on the introduction? No. Okay. So,
would you like some comment?
Members, no. Members, we're going to vote on the introduction of the item. All those in favor of introducing the item? Any opposed? That carries. The item is on the agenda. Okay. We will go to item EY 16.21. Which is 230 Royal York Road residential demolition application. Deputy Mayor Morley, this was your letter?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Questions of staff?
No questions of staff for me. I was just going to make a motion. Yes, I'd like to move the recommendations in the letter before you. It's to proceed with recommendation number 2, so allowing for residential demolition to proceed with conditions. We've been working closely with this applicant. The building is now vacant. All the existing tenants have been supported to their next step, and we'd like to support this applicant to move forward with their building at this location.
Deputy Mayor Morley moves the recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. On our final item, which is EY 16.22, is a letter from Councillor Perruzza. Questions of staff? Okay, you just bear with us for a moment for technical issues. Is there anyone from EDC here today that could answer a question regarding BIAs? Okay, any other questions of staff? I don't know that they can be answered. Okay, members to speak. Councilor Perruzza.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. So basically, two folks have left the board. The membership is thin, and we have two folks who have indicated that they would like to sit on the board. So I'm moving the recommendation before you today that we accept the resignation of Joseph Montanaro, Carisha Mother Rusil, and appoint in their place Akiva Wolf and David Galblum.
Okay, on the councilor's recommendation. Pardon me? No?
Yeah,
questions of the speaker?
Yeah, to Councilor Perruzza, has the city been notified of these two resignations?
Yeah, we've all been notified. They sent in emails.
Oh, so they resigned at
Yeah.
a board meeting
Yes,
and the notices
right.
were sent to the city?
Okay.
No, I just asked.
Yeah, the economic development officer sits in on the meetings and sits in on the board meetings, so they're aware of what's going on there. Okay. They have a representative.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the recommendation, all those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. Madam Clerk, I'm going to check with you if that is our last item of business. I believe we would have bills. So don't go away. Deputy Mayor Morley.
Move that bills 879 to 885 prepared for the September 23rd, 2024 meeting 16 of the Etobicoke York Community Council be declared as bylaws and passed subject to section 226.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. On motion number 2, volunteers. Councilor Perruzza.
That confirmatory bills to confirm the legislative proceedings of the Etobicoke Community Council acting under delegated authority at meeting 16 September 23rd, 2024 be declared as bylaws and passed subject to section 226.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.